Hi, Otto here for Bavarian Autosport. Today we're going to be installing the new Bavarian Autosport high performance sway bar kit on this E46 3 Series chassis. This kit is available for the E36 and E46 3 Series models. It'll fit everything from 92 through 05 except for the 318 Ti and the E46 four-wheel drive models and the E46 M3. These kits are also available for the Mini on just the rear. And so we're going to get to work on this car. A unique feature of these sway bar kits that helps keep the cost down is we can reuse the factory end links on both front and rear. They do come with urethane mounting bushings. So let's get to work on this. The first thing we need to do is remove this splash panel, which will allow access to the mounting bushings for the sway bar. Then we'll work on the end links on the right and left side. You'll notice the gloves I'm using. They're the Bavarian Autosport Sure Grip gloves. These are really nice. They're nice and heavy. You can usually get through a whole job with these. You can also take them off and put them back on as well. All right, now the first thing we're going to do is remove this splash panel so we can access the sway bar mount bushings, which are right up behind the panel here. Some cars will have panels, some cars will not have panels, some will look different. This particular panel is held on with a number of Phillips head screws and some of the typical BMW push rivets across the front. So to remove the push rivets, we'll just get behind the push pin with a pair of diagonal cutters and just use them as a fork to pull the center of the pin out like that. We could use the non-marring pry tools, except sometimes these are kind of tight and the pry tools are plastic and won't pull these out adequately. So we pull the center out, which unlocks the rivet, and then we pull the whole rivet out. And the rest of the fasteners are Phillips head screws. This one looks already loose. They should be held captive in the panel. Okay, now we're just getting the last screw. And again, you can see these screws are held captive. They're about a quarter turn to unlock. And we have them all loose. This front one's hanging up just a little bit. There we go. And pull the panel down and off. We'll set that aside. Here's the sway bar. And we'll be removing this mount bracket for the bushing on the passenger side and the mount bracket for the bushing on the driver's side. Before we move those, we're going to go to the end links over here and disconnect them from the sway bar. So we'll set up for that and show you how that's done. Now what we're going to do to remove the sway bar, remember we've got our shield off. Next thing we're going to do is disconnect the link that connects the sway bar itself to the suspension. Now all E46 models, so that's the 3 Series from 99 through 05, use this long link here that connects to the sway bar and goes upward and connects to the shock absorber up on the shock absorber body. E36 M3s, so the 95 to 99 M3s, also use this style of a connection. The other E36 models, 92 through 98, that are non-M3s, have a different style link. It'll go from the sway bar end down to a bracket on the control arm. It's just a short link with a rubber bushing on the end down here and a ball joint up here. The disconnection is basically the same. We disconnect at the sway bar. Now if we're reusing the links, we just leave the link where it's at, either connected to the control arm or connected up on the shock. We leave that connection if we're going to reuse the link. We do suggest you put new links on the vehicle if they've been on for quite some time. These ball joints wear out, and on the short style, the rubber bushing wears out. These links were replaced not too long ago, so we're going to leave these particular links in. We're going to loosen this nut, and that's connected through to the ball joint in the end of the link. Now, in turning the nut, the ball joint's going to want to turn as well. So there's a flat on this side of the ball joint. We'll use an open-end wrench, and it has to be thin. Now this one here, we ground down thin. This particular one is a 16 millimeter wrench. These flats, depending on the brand of the sway bar, can be 16, 17, or 18 millimeter, depending on the brand. This one happens to be 16. We're going to go in, get the wrench on the flats, just like that. Get on the nut. You'll notice I'm using a wobble end on this extension. That allows the socket to go on a slight angle. So we'll get onto the nut, and we'll loosen that while we're holding the flats on the ball joint end of the link. Okay, there's our nut. This was 17 millimeter. And now we can just push the end link out of the sway bar end. Now the sway bar is free. We already undid the link on the other side of the vehicle. So the sway bar is now just being hung by the bushings. And there's what your end link looks like, if you can see it on the camera. Get it in a place where you might be able to see it. The flats that we were holding the wrench on, right on this piece right here. They're right on this piece here. There's the flats. And then you can see this one's nice and tight. There's no play in it. It's very firm. So we'll reuse this one. Same with the other side. Now the next thing is we're going to remove the bushings, and then the sway bar will come right down. We'll get ready for that. As you saw in the last frame, we have the sway bar disconnected from the end links. So the only thing holding it are the mounts here and over there. There's two nuts holding these mounts up into studs in the frame. These are 13 millimeter bolts. Both the E46 and the E36 are going to be the same here. In fact, the whole front setup for E36 and 46 is basically the same, except for the differences in the links that I already discussed. So we'll remove these nuts. We'll remove one nut on each bracket, then we'll go back and get the other nuts. And we'll get the rear one. Okay, there's our rear nut. And now we'll hold the bar, remove these other nuts. Right now, the bar is actually staying up. The bracket is sticking on the studs. Now I've got both nuts off on that side. I'm ready to remove the final nut on this side, and even though the bar isn't falling yet, I'm going to put my hand on it just to make sure it doesn't. Okay, all the nuts are off now. Just give it a little bit of a tug. We may need to pry. Oftentimes that's the case. A little bit of a pry here. Get the bracket moving off. Okay, there's one. And I'm going to step in front of the camera here to do the other one. Two. And at this point, the bar will come right down. The rubber on this is stuck to the chassis actually. We'll pull the bar out of the rubber through the splits. There we go. Set it aside. And we'll get these rubber bushings down, and see those were just stuck to the metal. Actually made it easier to remove the bar. All right, now to prep the new bar for installation, we want to lubricate the urethane bushings. I'm going to use the Liqui-Moly anti-seize compound. We found that works excellent on the urethane bushings. First we'll pull the bushings off at the split and liberally squirt the anti-seize in and just use our finger and fill that opening. Now we're going to then spread the bushing, put it back on the bar. Okay, we'll do the same for the other side, and then the bar will be ready for installation. Now also, our metal bracket goes on top here. We're going to apply the anti-seize to the outside of the bushing, so we're sure not to get any squeak between the bushing and the bracket either. Okay, so now this one's ready for installation. We'll complete the other side, and then we'll show you how to put the bar right back up. Okay, now you saw us lubricate the bushings, the new urethane bushings on the bar. Here's the new bar with the bushings on. I've pushed the metal mounting brackets over the bushings. Remember, we lubricated the bushings where the brackets go as well. We're just going to set this up here, get one nut on each side so the bar will stay up. And right here. There's one on that side. We'll do one on the other side. Get the nut on there. Okay, now we can grab the other nuts and thread them on and get the mounts up there. Now we can tighten the mounts down before we do the links. The bar will self-center. Okay, that's all set. Now all we do is connect our end links back here, and we'll be all set to finish up the front and get the splash shield back on. All right, now our final hookup is the sway bar end link on the driver's side here. We already connected the end link on the passenger side, so the bar is solid. It's connected on the other side. We'll take the stud, put it through the hole on the sway bar. Okay, and we'll get the nut on there. We've got the nut. I'm going to come around from the back side to do that. And remember, we have to hold the flats on the tie rod or the ball joint end. And we'll get our socket on the nut. So the sway bar is 100% installed. The only thing left is to install our splash panel. Then the front is done. We'll continue on to the rear once we have our splash panel up.